Hello and welcome back to Dry Conversations. I'm your host, Whitney Cowell. Joining me today is Michael Sternberg. Hey, Michael.
What's going on, Whitney? How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, it's always fun sharing about my journey, and I don't get to do it as much as I'd like to, because life is always lifing, right? You have all the other responsibilities, but I really appreciate you inviting me on and allowing me to have this space.
Yeah, of course. For anybody that doesn't know you, why don't you give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you've been up to recently?
Yeah, so my name is Mike Sternberg. I'm Director of Sales over at 3PL Systems. We just sponsored your shows. We have our little logo on the bottom because we are huge proponents of your mission and what you're doing here. But yeah, I've been in the freight tech space, specifically selling TMS to freight brokerages for almost a decade, about 9.5 years. And outside of that, look, I'm just like any other guy. I'm, like I'm married, I got kids, I barbecue, I hang out, I like to play sports with my kids, and I'm a pretty simple guy.
Just like any other guy. I love that. So I'm assuming, that hasn't always been the case, right? Like, because there's a story that led up to where you could say, I'm just like any other guy.
Sure. No, it's there was a lot of time where I wasn't able to say that, and there was a lot of time where just being able to get to the point of being able to say, not just say it, but believe it, that, hey, I'm just like any other guy, was something that seems so far away, right?
Yeah.
Like so far away. And without going through the whole bit, because, and nobody wants the whole story. But the long and the short of it is I realized around 19 years old that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, to put it real bluntly. And at the time I was, I had grown up as like a straight A student. I was valedictorian in my class, and I went to UCLA, and he has so much potential and so much promise and all these things he could be, right? And I was seeing that all crumble in front of my face, basically. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that have gone through similar struggles with substances, what ends up happening, right, is that your problem, whatever substance it is also your solution, right? Because what is creating the pain is also what's curing the pain. And so you get caught in this vicious cycle of trying to numb the pain by the exact thing that's causing the pain, right? It's a very, very strange situation. But yeah, so I was only 19 years old when I figured that out. But it took me I started using substances at 14,
early.
15, early. So yeah, 19, did the typical thing like a lot of us that have gone through that kind of thing. I'll get sober just to get my parents off my back, or just to get back into school, or just to get legal troubles taken care of. But it took me 6 years. From 19 to 25, I did the typical like in and out of detox, in and out of rehab, do it for a little bit, then think I can control it. Maybe I can do it differently this time. It won't be as bad. But it wasn't until I turned 25. It was September 11th of 2013, actually, is when I got sober for the last time. So it's been, I don't know, what is the math? 11.5 years that I've been sober now. And it takes a lot of work, but yeah, it was not always that way. So let me pause for a second, because I'm sure I could ramble on, but I'm curious if you want to take that in whatever direction you want to take that in.
Well, it's just talking to somebody else who got sober young is always a good conversation because it is hard, right? Like that age, because when you realize you had a problem is the age that I had my first drink. And your 6 years of struggling and in and out and back and forth were my 6 years of pedal to the metal addiction, because I got sober also at 25.
Did you get sober the first time you tried?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I guess. Well, but that's like not understanding what addiction was.
Sure.
Having absolutely no concept that I was an alcoholic. but still trying to do the, like, I'm going to appease my parents. I'm going to save this relationship that I'm in. Like, if I'm sober long enough, maybe he'll marry me. Like, just create.
I get it.
But like, I don't necessarily see those as periods of sobriety because that wasn't my goal. Sure. And I wouldn't have called them like being sober, because sober from what? Like, it just wasn't drinking. You know what I mean? Sure. But like when I have my bottle, the last bottle, it's back here.
Oh, do you? Oh, how cool.
It's peeking back there behind my duck. But that was, I tried a couple of things and started to seek help because life felt like it sucked. And I remember I called a girl. I had a fight with my roommate over where the wine opener was.
Yeah,
and
gosh.
and I was, and she yelled at me that I was an alcoholic, and my thought was, takes one to know one. And I was like, oh, sure. That might have been the first honest thought I've had in a minute, and it kind of scared me. And then that was the last night that I drank, and that bottle was half full of red wine, and I poured it out in the sink, and I rinsed it out, and I've never looked back.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean.
So you got sober at the same age? You got sober at 25?
I got sober at 25, yeah.
Isn't it weird?
Months after my birthday.
Yeah, so a little bit more context, just talking about the whole like sober when you're young kind of thing. So I was 19, I was at UCLA, I was in a fraternity. Oh. Right? Which you can imagine was like, and I was, even within that whole party scene, I was party guy, right? And so there was a lot of conflict there. And then also it's like, am I going to lose my whole social circle?
Right.
Am I going to be a weirdo because I haven't been sober for who knows how long? I don't even know who I am or what I'm like without it. Right. And then you know how it is. You start like, I call it future tripping, right? You start tripping out about the future. And I'm like, well, I can't not drink champagne at my wedding, which is like such an absurd thought. Like, what? Really? But at the time, in my head, it was like a legit, like, no, this is going to be a problem. I have to drink at my wedding. I didn't even, wasn't even engaged. I was freaking, like, what are we doing?
I have a journal entry about that exact thing. Just like, but like, I was devastated. I was like, this is going to ruin everything about my life. And just like single as could be, worried about my wedding night. Is so stupid.
No, it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. But no, I think back to a lot of those times, again, starting at 19 through 25, like I knew I had to stop. I just don't think I wanted to. And this is a thing that's hard for people that aren't stuck with what I'll call our affliction, right? Like people that don't get, like, even though you should stop, unfortunately, the way our brains work is like, it feels so damn good, just to put it bluntly. And whatever it's fulfilling for you, whether it's, filling a hole or making you more social, whatever pain it is that you're masking, it's a coping mechanism that unfortunately works really well.
Yep.
Right. And then the problem is over the years, when that's your only coping mechanism, when you get rid of it, you don't know how to freaking deal with anything. Right. Yeah. And so you have to relearn all these skills. And what a lot of people talk about, I'm sure, you've been down this path as well. It's like, there's a difference between just stopping using drugs and alcohol and like actually like maintaining spiritual, mental, emotional sobriety. It's a huge difference.
It is. And I think to start from the beginning of that thought is like the fear of it is like, we don't know who we are. And it feels better to have that familiar chaos where like, I have some type of expectation of what the outcome is going to be. Like, I know that it's going to cause this fight. This is what it's going to feel like. I need to lay low for this long. It'll blow over by this time frame. And like, there's a type of predictability in the chaos, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But like, if your brain works that way, it makes sense,
Sure.
And I think that's where like younger people tend to get very overwhelmed by that thought. And like, I think for older people, it's the facing from my experience and what I've heard, it's facing the amount of time that's lapsed. How do I make up for lost time? How do I face, all of these years that could have been and should have been? And so I think that's a really significant like mental leap. And that's why I think everybody, like the people who talk about like hitting your bottom, I think that's why it looks different for everyone of like
100%.
where is that line of enough? And that might be different for you than it is for me.
But no worse, right? Just
No,
subjectively worse, but like it's all the same, right? And
the feeling is the same, right?
exactly. No, it's interesting, the whole, like you were saying, it's like all the time that has lapsed. And I used to feel that way, even like you said, I got sober pretty young,
Yeah.
right? But when I got sober, I used to be like, okay, here's where I am. Here's where I should be, which is all BS anyways, right? But here's where I should be. And then I would get caught in, how do I close this gap from where I am to where I should be? And how do I do it as fast as possible? And I would feel a ton of guilt and shame around this gap, which is, again, it's BS, right? And all I'm looking at is like, why am I not here? Why am I here? And how do I get here fast?
Yeah.
And instead of getting into a state of like, well, okay, this is what it is. The only way to get there is to start moving, right? The only way is to do the work. And at some point you look back and, it's been, years, and it's like, I know, again, it's been, 11 and a half years for me. It's like, I have a wife. I've been married for multiple years. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have a 6-year-old son. Like, all the things that we like, it sounds so ridiculous to like what I'll call, like, we call them normies, right? People that don't have, right? It's like, no, like something as simple as like, I didn't used to open my mail, right? Because the mail meant like responsibility, and the mail meant I had to face something. And I didn't open my freaking mail for years. As weird as that sounds, those simple things of like, I'm just a normal guy, what I started with, that's why I feel that way now, because like I'm able to do all the normal things that don't seem
I'm
like
a
a big
normal guy.
deal.
Open my mail.
Right? Like, it's ridiculous, but like I think you understand why I use that as an example, right?
And I don't know if you had this feeling too, because you were like, you mentioned like these things that they're supposed to be like normal, and for us, like that's supposed to be is such a dangerous sentence, because the things that I used to say, like, I feel like I'm in elementary school. Like, I feel like I'm learning right from wrong and like the difference between red and blue, like all over again. And I feel like an idiot. But it's the same for anybody that's like trying something new. Like, nobody is good their first time trying something. Typically, I mean, I don't know. Some people are, but like, okay, I didn't know how to cope with certain feelings. I didn't know that I was allowed to have certain feelings. You don't learn about paying bills and financial responsibility in a certain window. You're going to wake up almost 30 and be like, oh my gosh, like my power's been cut off because I didn't know I needed to auto enroll. Like it's a self-care thing for me. I do that because I learned. And I think the same goes with what where we feel like we're supposed to be in our recovery. Is it's very easy to look at somebody else and be like, well, they have their life together and they're this old. And it's like, well, yeah, but you have no idea the elementary lessons that they had to learn to get to that point. And maybe they came in with some knowledge that you didn't, but I guarantee you they have blind spots that maybe you don't have, that they have also felt really inadequate facing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's no secret that, this comparing our journey and our current state to others is like one of the worst things we can do for ourselves, but it's also human nature, right? And that's the crazy part. It's like we, for whatever reason, humans, our brains are designed to do that, right? It's just how it is. And you have to train yourself, right? Especially when you're getting sober, to overcome that. Because look, I had friends that like I dropped out of UCLA, right? I had friends that graduated and went to graduate school and went to medical school and went and got became a lawyer and did all the things that were my peers at one point, that I no longer felt like were my peers because I had gone this direction, right? And that's just more of like talking about the gap that we were talking about, right? And then the hardest part, I'm sure you can relate to this. The hardest part is like believing that it's even possible to close that gap. Because everything in my history prior to getting sober showed me that I screw this up, I get the opportunity, and it turns to shit because of what I do. And that was true. Like that wasn't wrong at the time, but my brain had been trained to see that pattern because that's all I had seen since I was, 19, when I knew it was a problem. And it probably was a problem long before that, right? But 19 when I really identified it. And then for, call it 7-8 years, all I was doing was screwing shit up, right?
Yeah. Everything, I used to feel like everything I touched fell apart. And that, like you said, the same thing that we used to harm ourselves, we used to heal ourselves, or at least we tried. And that was, it would just quiet that feeling and that thought. But now, having a couple of years to be able to look back and having a fully developed brain at this age.
I'm still working on it.
I can honestly say, like, I needed those experiences, and I have no timeline on my gap. I don't see a gap anymore. I just see a road of opportunity, because I don't know what that end point is. Okay. So somebody, that I went to school with got their doctorate, and they're, a doctor of physical therapy now. Like, okay, but that's also not my path. You know what I mean? Like 100%. Somebody else is in marketing that's my age and is making twice my salary. Okay, but look at all the things that I have, like, outside that make me feel fulfilled. I have no idea who that person is on the inside and their struggles. So now there's not so much a gap to close as like a road that continues going forward. And if I keep looking at it that way, where I'm not closing in on any one thing, maybe like a goal that I've set for myself and I'm walking towards that, but that feels really good. And I didn't have the ability to do that when I was drinking. I couldn't set goals. You know what I mean? Like,
you got about 24 hours of forethought, right? Maybe.
Maybe it's just a different mindset. It's all in the perspective. And I think my time sober, looking back at it now, it's totally shifted my perspective in how I look at myself and how I look at my life and how I look at what direction and the word purpose for me really means.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And the perspective bit, I want to pull a thread on that real quick because it's something that I really truly believe in. And I know it's not like, hey, I have this like unique philosophical thought. I don't think it's an original thought, but it's just so important, right? Because what people fail to realize, and I'll say for myself, especially when I was getting sober, is like, you literally get to see whatever you want. Like, your perspective literally shapes your reality. And what happened for me is, again, I had, all this promise, whatever, and then it all fell apart. And so I stopped believing that I was capable of accomplishing the things that I wanted to accomplish and being the person that I thought I should be, whether that's a good partner to a good romantic partner, whether that's a good son, whether that's a good brother, a good employee, a good friend. I couldn't do those things. I sucked. I wouldn't want to be friends with me when I wasn't sober, right? I was not a good person. If I was, I probably wouldn't have gotten sober, right? But there's that. But what happens is, when you've destroyed that part of yourself so much, your perspective internally is so negative. What was really big for me is I had other people who never stopped believing in me, right? Yeah. Whether that was my mom, my dad, my sister, a group of other people that had gotten sober before me that were willing to help and be in those rooms. And, I got around groups of people that I was able to use their belief when I didn't have it for myself, right? And that's something that I like to share with, people that are newly sober as well. I'm like, listen, I know you don't think it's possible, but I do. And I'm able to say that because I did it, right? Yeah. And I'm not the first one, and I'm not going to be the last one, right? And there's going to be people after me, and there were many people before me. And that's the beauty of this, is somebody believes it can be done. And if you don't have the belief, which I didn't, I've been able to latch onto it with other people until I was able to build that belief in myself and change that perspective on how I looked at the world and what was possible, and how I looked at myself and what was possible. And it's like anything, you can't do it on your own, right? And if you don't surround yourself with a group of people who prop you up, there's a lack of connection, and that lack of connection is just going to drive you right back to what you were doing before. Because why get sober if it's not better? Why get sober if I can't connect with people, right? But changing that perspective, to your point, is you see what you want to see, right? And if all you think is that, like, I suck, I screw everything up, nothing good ever happens for me, that's what you're going to get, right?
Yeah. That is such an amazing way to, like, frame that, because you're right. We get to borrow the confidence of other people in whatever path that's going to look like, you know, for both of us, there was a program that we needed. We needed to walk into a room and see several other people and hear that knowledge and say, like, my best thinking got me here, not very far. What's your thinking telling you? And like, okay, these are the things that I did to stay sober, and then we can mirror those things. And so in borrowing like that belief, we get to borrow like the steps that they took. We get to start using like these real examples, you know, and it's like, and that gives you the ability to say, like, look, if I got sober, you could get sober, you know, like
we're sharing our belief right now, right?
Yeah.
This exactly what you're doing with this whole podcast, and even me coming out, like, it's part of trying to share that belief out with the universe, you know?
Yeah. And because I love that we all have like similar but very different stories, right? Like there's so much overlap. I guarantee you, like if we were to lay out what it was like for us, kind of step by step of what we were like as addicts, then as people that are trying to get sober or early sobriety and where we are now, there's going to be a ton of overlap. And that's why I think it's important to have these conversations so that people can find that overlap and those commonalities and say, okay, you face that, I face that. How did you do it? Because I don't know how to do it. And that is, I think, what my first like 2 years of recovery, that's all that it was just like following in other people's like worn in footsteps on the path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so important too, because it's such a drastic change from what it was like when we weren't sober, right? So it's like so much about alcoholism and addiction is isolation and darkness, right? Yeah. And we do it to ourselves because we know we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. Like, we inherently know how bad it is, right? And so we do things like we hide it, we lie, we do all these things, and we isolate ourselves even further. And the only way to counteract that is through connecting on the other side, right? And so that's why, like you said, the groups that we've been a part of were so important, why building that support structure around you is so important. And then even take it a step further, like taking it to like a professional, you know, lens, because I know this is something you're big on, where you've told me you like to like do resumes for people that are just getting back into the workforce, that are doing that whole thing, which is awesome. But like, I needed someone to freaking believe that I could succeed in a professional space, right? Because like, again, looking at my history, it's like, well, I've never done that. I think I can. Logically, it makes sense. I think I'm smart enough, but like, you need a mentor, a boss, a leader to say, no, I see it. Let me give you a chance. And I believe in you. And that borrowing a belief is not just like a sobriety thing. It's like a life and a development thing, right? Yeah. And, you know, like you said, following in the footsteps of those that came before us and really knowing what's possible, it's because other people have done it. And that's the beauty. Like, I don't have to figure this shit out. Yeah. Someone else already did. Someone else already figured this out. So great. I don't have to figure it out. I just have to be willing to listen.
Yeah. And it's like you said, there were these thoughts that you had of like, these are all the things that I should be, as far as like, you know, a good parent, a spouse, a coworker, you know, all of these things. And then by watching other people do it, by having those support systems, I think it like opens where it's like, oh, they have so much potential. Then you start believing, like, it's not just, I bet I could, but like, I know that I can be these things. It's not who I should be. It's who I want to be. It's who I believe that I can be. And that is something, like, I hate that time takes time. Like it just takes
the worst.
To get there. but it's possible, right? Like, over time, you learned like all of these different pieces of your identity are no longer things that you feel a failure in, but a thing that is like an opportunity for you to get to like wake up every day sober and show up to be that person.
Well, and it's so much easier to be grateful with the simple things, right? It's so much great. It's so much easier to just be like, no, I'm just like every other guy, because like, to me, I'm getting emotional. To me, that's a big deal, right? I know you understand what I'm saying. Like, to us, that's a big deal, because for so long, that's all we wanted, right? It's all we wanted.
Yeah, it's true.
Apologize for that.
No, it's okay. But like, because it is a very emotional. I'm not gonna look at you and make me upset, but like
12 years, and it's still there, right?
No,
that's all good.
But that's good, right? Because like that it is such a primal need to like to be known, to be understood, to be in community. Like we just were not meant to do it alone. And for so long, we were isolated from our actions and what we did and how we were treating people. Like we hurt people. We hurt people deeply, but we also hurt ourselves. And in that, it put a disconnect in so many different places that we are not meant to have. And to be able to say, like, for me to wake up and say, I'm just a normal person. Like
it's so good.
It's so good because for so long I didn't feel like that person, and my life mirrored that I wasn't that person. And so it became very easy to believe that I never could be and I never will be. And that whole like time takes time thing, like piece by piece and not giving up, that the pieces of the puzzle are there and I'm going to have people help me put this puzzle back together. And there's not a missing piece. It might feel undone to me, but that's where this like trust that like I am not a finished work. In my 30s right now, I'm not a finished work. I won't be in my 40s. If I live to see 50, I still won't be a finished work. That doesn't mean that something's missing. It means that I'm continuing to grow. And I did not have the capacity to believe something like that 6 years ago. I just didn't.
It's so true, because it's like there's two things with that I would say. It's like, if I am a finished work, then that kind of sucks, because that means the journey's done.
Don't want to see the end.
And like, if this is the best it is, like, I shouldn't say it that way, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be done. I want to keep growing. I want to keep moving. I want things to keep evolving, because that's what makes life exciting, right? Learning, growing, connecting, doing all the things. And if it's done and I'm finished, then like, why am I here? Right. And so with the other side of that is really powerful. I think what you just said is like, just because I'm not a finished product doesn't mean that something's missing. And what we don't realize most of the time is that nothing was ever missing, right? Yeah. Nothing ever was. We think it is. We convince ourselves it is, right? But we are equipped with the tools we need to take our path, which you mentioned earlier, not someone else's path, but we are equipped with the tools to take the path that we are meant to take. And the people we meet along the way to support us and motivate us and show us the way is much different for me, for you, albeit there's a ton of overlap. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. And what you realize is the more you focus on your piece, what does it mean for me? What's important for me? And it's so much easier, like I said, to just focus on the simple things when you know what it's like to not have the simple things.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to be grateful for everything that comes your way, because we know what it's like to not have it, right? And it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. People struggle with all kinds of stuff, and the parallels are very similar, right? I mean, I think I might not get this exactly right, but I think it's like over 80% of 12-step programs are not drug and alcohol related, which is crazy, right? Like, and so, you know, the struggle is the same across every different type, even though we might label it differently and try to put it in different buckets. It's all the same, right? It's all personal growth and development and learning who you are and being at peace with yourself and the world, right?
So I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious to know, because this has been such a, I feel so known, connected in this conversation, but what is one thing that your sobriety has given back to you that you didn't have the capacity for, or that you didn't know you were allowed to have until you did the work and you stayed sober?
It's a really good question. Oh man, I could take that in so many different directions, and I have to take a breath so I don't get emotional again. So the biggest thing for me is like, I think, you know, as humans, we're like biologically, we're pack animals, right? Like, we are social creatures. We are designed to be part of the pack. And for so long, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to like feel like I was part of the pack. I was when I was younger, right? But once I started like, you know, self-medicating or whatever and using these substances to blind my emotions and my thoughts and my feelings, I had always felt somewhat distanced. I was there, but I wasn't really part of the pack. And it was by my own doing. But by being able to get sober and really being able to see myself and also let myself be seen, who I really am on both sides. So that has been really the biggest thing that's allowed me to create really, my family, my wife, my 2 kids, reconnect with my parents, which God bless them, they were always there for me. They never left my side. But really to like mend those relationships, because like you said, we did damage. Mend those relationships with my sister. Some of my friends that I've had since I was 8 years old that I didn't talk to for years, and mend those relationships. But so it's really, for me, the biggest gift that it has given me is being able to reconnect with my loved ones and really establish, it's kind of cheesy, but like establish my own pack, right? Like I have my own pack now, which I was never able to do when I was using drugs and alcohol.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. I was not expecting to tear up on this recording, but I'm not surprised. I know you haven't known me for that long, but those who have would not be surprised with that.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, oh no, because
No, I'm a happy crier. I'm not a sad crier. That was a gratitude emotion. That was not a sad emotion.
I get it. There was a day not too long, like it's finally warming up here in Tennessee, and I just woke up in the morning. It was kind of chilly, and I had a hot cup of tea, and I went outside, and the dog started wrestling in the yard, and it was like before 9 a.m. and you're just like sitting there and like hearing the turkeys going crazy in the background, thinking like it is unbelievable to me that I get to wake up and just be here, be in this moment, be surrounded by trees and on grass that like I own this land. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like I can't remember the last time, thankfully, that like I woke up and that hour was a struggle. Like I remember the feelings but like I have so many new memories of like mornings that I love, afternoons that I love, barbecuing with friends, like making burgers on a Saturday. And so, I'm so happy for you that that's where you're at, that your path has brought you like an immense amount of joy and healing. And knowing that like we're not finished works, there's still so much opportunity for so much more than that, like life has so much capacity when we're doing it in a sober way.
I love that. I used to say it when I got sober, I was like a freak about like, man, everything's beautiful, right? Like the trees are beautiful, these chips are delicious, like, but we forget how much beauty there is in the simple things, right? Because we get blinded by everything that modern society throws at us, right? Yeah. And really being able to focus on that has been a blessing, really been a blessing. So this was great. I appreciate you having me on. That was I'm glad we didn't do any prep. I love that. I love that so much because it's just so much more raw, right?
It is. Well, I had a little survey I was sending out, and I was told, you know what, toss it and see what happens. So this is what we're doing these days. Yeah. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and diving deep with me. I know for some people it's really uncomfortable to go deep, but like that's what we're here to do. And I hope that somebody finds hope in your story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. This has been a blast. I haven't done that in a while. Like I said, I used to do it all the time. Used to speak on panels and at detoxes and rehabs and do the whole bit. So that was it's been years since I've done that. So thank you. Yeah, of course. Which I'm assuming means that you're open if somebody wants to talk to you. How would they reach you if that's something they're interested in? Yeah, so you can email me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I guess I'll put my email here. I don't know. Where should I put me? This isn't live. Sorry, I'm used to doing live recordings with Cameron. I'll give you my email so that you can put it in whatever you post after. Put it in the notes, yeah, so you can put my email in there. And then, you can find me on LinkedIn. But no, I'm 100% open. One of the things I said is, look, there were people that helped me. Yeah, I would be remiss to not help the next person because I wouldn't be where I'm at without the people that helped show me the path to get to where I am. And so now that I'm on the other side, I hate that term, but now that I'm on the other side, I have no problem reaching back and helping the next person who's in line. Well, you heard it here, guys. Reach out to Michael if you're looking for someone to talk to. So thanks for a wonderful episode, Michael, and to everybody else, we will see you next week. Thanks.